I'm Bob Scott, Director of Church Outreach for the Commonwealth Policy Center. I just really want to say thank you so much for tuning in to today's edition of CPC Live. It's been a while since I've done one of these, and I am super excited. My wife, Caroline, and I have gone through a season that has involved a lot of medical issues, but praise the Lord, we are on the other side of that. And I decided to ask an extremely special guest to be on my first program back. Representative Nancy Tate is a dear friend. She's become a dear friend of ours and is absolutely doing great things for the Commonwealth. And Nancy, I'd like to welcome you to this edition of CPC Live.
Thank you, Pastor Scott. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today and the viewers for Commonwealth Policy Center. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nancy. And just to remind everybody, if you're not familiar with Nancy, I'm going to try to change that a little bit. She was elected to office in 2019. Her very first race out the door was against an incumbent. She won by 6 votes coming out. And so that's, again, proof positive that every vote counts and is important. And with regard from that point on, she has become a stalwart for defending the sanctity of human life. And like I say, we are blessed as a state to have her. She represents District 27 over in Brandenburg. It covers all of Meade County and a part of Hardin County as well. And again, has really done a lot of stuff. And really right now, praise God, Nancy, there's a lot of issues pertaining to the sanctity of human life that are coming before our legislature, critical ones. I mean, we had a lot to unpack, sister, in a very short period of time. And
that's right.
I really want to get into them. But let me start with, I'm not saying it's the most important, but it's certainly up there. House Bill 91. It's a constitutional amendment. Obviously, it's a bill that the Commonwealth Policy Center is firmly behind, as well as several other pro-life groups in our state. And again, you're one of the leading advocates for this bill. And let's talk to the viewers right now. Tell them a little bit about this bill and why it is so critical. It will be on the ballot, not this year, but just about 1 year from today. But there is going to be, I don't want to say a battle for it, but it's something that's going to be definitely in discussion and challenge, through this period of time. So never too early to start talking about it. So tell us a little bit about House Bill 91 and why it is so critically important.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're calling House Bill 91 as the Yes for Life constitutional amendment. And as you said, it'll be on the ballot in 2022, in November of 22. And basically it states that Kentucky Constitution does not secure or protect a right to abortion. And for us, that's so very important. We've got a lot that are going on at the federal level. A lot of things are going before the Supreme Court. As we know, as a matter of fact, on November 1st, the Texas Heartbeat Bill will be heard by the federal Supreme Court. So it's very important, if the opportunity is presented for the states to make decisions regarding human and women's health, then we want to make sure that Kentucky is poised to be prepared to do that. And we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to not secure from a financial perspective or from a opportunity perspective, the right to abortion. I think that going back to the statistic, I think that about 80% of the people that are polled say that they do not want state or federal dollars to be used for abortion.
That's right.
And so this is to make sure that this is actually in our Constitution Right now, we have one of the most, and probably the most conservative and pro-life General Assembly in the history of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And we want to make sure that as this, things wax and wane, right? And so
Yes,
one of these
we have
times we
seen
might,
that.
absolutely, we've seen that, right? And so the opportunity might present itself that we don't have a conservative General Assembly in the future. And this will be embedded in our Constitution whenever those of us that are advocate lifers are no longer here.
Yeah, and what I really like about this, Nancy, is it really literally puts it into people's hands,
Absolutely.
from the standpoint of having the opportunity to hear the information about it and make an informed decision and then actually go and vote on it, which I think is very, very important, obviously.
Right. And we know too from previous constitutional amendments that were placed on the ballot that we can't make things too wordy because there's the opportunity that one of our the court system, the judicial system might rule that it's too complicated. So we made this very simple, and it's as a voter, do you support funding of abortion in the Commonwealth of Kentucky or do you not?
Boy,
So
that's about as simple as it can get.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
That's correct. That's
for
correct.
sure. Have you heard anything with regard to groups that would be against this bill, how they're handling it? Groups such as the ACLU and those types of groups, and what would be your response to them?
Yeah, so that's a great point. Louisiana, as far as I'm aware, they were the first state that passed this constitutional amendment. And so we use them as the basis of what can we expect. And as you've said, the ACLU and Planned Parenthood, they've already started filling their purse for how to actually challenge this the constitutional amendment. And we know, and how they're going to challenge it is they'll do that from the public's perspective. They'll, have a campaign, and in Louisiana, it costs approximately $1 million to get this constitutional amendment passed.
Wow.
So we know that the opposition is going to come very well funded, but at the same time, we're going to come very well funded as well, not only with dollars, which will, part of our role will be to ask for funding, because it's going to take a lot to make sure that people are aware, first of all, that this constitutional amendment's on the ballot and that they need to get out and vote. In the Commonwealth, it's less likely for people to come out when it's not a presidential election. So it's an off year. So it's very important for us to get out that vote and get people that are pro-lifers and who are advocate about their dollars not being spent for abortions to actually let their voice be heard.
Yeah, amen. And I do suspect 2022 will be a little bit of an unusual election based upon what's happening right now on the federal level. And let me put a big but in there. It is absolutely critical that people engage, and get involved and really, most importantly, go exercise your right to vote, because that and other important issues will be on the ballot. And another question that I have, and really it'd be for some of the other ones we're going to get into discussing. Some have called it the Omnibus Health and Human Omnibus Bill, but it's really known as the Humanity and Healthcare Act. And I really do want to unpack that, because that's another very substantial bill or legislation that is going to be brought before the General Assembly. Where's leadership on it right now, Nancy? I guess that would be my first question to you. What's their thought process? What are you hearing?
Well, and again, I'm going to go back and I'm going to say that from my perspective, and actually from our voting record, we've demonstrated that we are one of the most conservative and one of the most pro-life advocate General Assembly in the history of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So I feel confident, that leadership, while they might not like it exactly the way it is, they will provide leadership again and give advice on how we need to handle this. Some people, because this is actually a grouping of like 6 different bills. And so there's several representatives and several senators that have participated in creating this bill. And I'd like to actually refer to them by name. You know, we've got
Yeah, please.
Representative Gibbons Prunty, Representative Fisher, Representative Beckler, Representative Bentley, and then again, as I've said, several of the senators. But we need to, and as you know, you've already talked too about the several organizations like Commonwealth Policy Center that's been involved in this. So I have to mention Adia Woosner, who
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
the executive director for Kentucky Right to Life. So this
Yes.
is very important for all of us. And people say, well, why are you at this point creating this huge bill? You know, the bill by itself, whenever we wrote it, it really is less than 20 pages. But when when you put in all the legal terms that we know that we have to, the whereases, this actually turns into where it's almost a 60-page. But I'm going to point out to all of the members of the General Assembly that it's not a 60-page document. It's a less than a 20-page document. And we want to make sure that it doesn't get bogged down in the 2020 session. You know, we know that it's a budget year. We know that we're still dealing with COVID. We know that potentially we're going to be addressing redistricting. So we don't want this bill, which is a very strong bill, to overwhelm people by thinking, oh my gosh, it's a 60-page bill. It truly is, in effect, not a 60-page bill.
Why is this legislation necessary? Kind of an obvious question, but for someone sitting at home saying, well, why do we need to do this?
Yeah, when we go through this, as you referred to, it's a Humanity and Healthcare Act. So it's not really we're not trying to drive the stake into abortions. You know, some people say, well, are you going to pass a heartbeat bill, Nancy? You know, just like the bill in Texas. And I'm like, actually, as a matter of fact, guys, we've already done that. In 2019, Senator Caslin carried the heartbeat bill for us. And we know that right now that's actually being tied up in the judicial system. It is the terminology is it's awaiting court decision, right? And we know that that's important. We know that we need to be deliberative and purposeful, but we've already passed legislation that would prohibit and stop abortions in the Commonwealth. So this is it truly is a health care act. It's the protection of women and families, and to make sure that they are getting the proper health care before and after they've received an abortion.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting. As I started getting into, I guess, an explainer on the legislation, it really is that, you know, and really, and I wrote down, you know, pretty much 6 main points of the bill. Let's talk about those right now. The first one would be tightening rules for abortion or abortions on minors. You know, we're not talking about adults, but on minors. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. And so I can take statistics that actually come from the Kentucky Department for Public Health Office of Vital Statistics. And so we know that 2020 was bad for a lot of different reasons, but in the Commonwealth, where we typically have approximately 3,000 abortions, we had over 4,000 abortions that were performed in Louisville, because basically that's where we have our 2 abortion centers, the MW Clinic. And then, of course, thanks to Governor Beshear, we have the Planned Parenthood facility that opened up as well. So the reason why this is so important, when I'm looking at the vital statistics, we see that every year, approximately every year, children, I'll use the word children, that are age 14 and younger are having abortions. So age 14, and then 15 to 19, over 300 are done. And so an abortion is a life-changing event.
Yes.
And it's life impacting not only for the baby who's aborted, but also for the child who's having that abortion. And first of all, we want to make sure that the parent consents. So right now, we don't even want an aspirin to be given to the children in school without parent consent. And yet there's an opportunity for these children to have an abortion without their parent consent. The other part is the judicial bypass. And that is, because some people say, well, Nancy, the minors sometimes don't have a relationship with their parents. You know, it might be an abusive relationship where they really don't have the opportunity to talk to their parents. That's why it's very important for the court system to make sure that the child who's having that abortion is mature enough to make that abortion, to have that be mature mentally to make sure. Absolutely. Because I think the statistic is that the human brain, we don't reach emotional maturity until age 25. So we've got approximately 350 children in the Commonwealth that are having a life-impacting medical procedure. We want to make sure that they are mentally capable of doing that, as well as that they are not being coerced or bribed or forced in any way to have those abortions.
Yeah,
So,
and you make a good point, because you think about it. There's been over 60 million abortions since Roe versus Wade passed, and I know our friend Angela Minter at Sisters for Life in Louisville, who is one of the leading champions, to stand and go out on the streets and talk to women about, as you mentioned, what is a life-changing decision, if they go through with it. And Angela herself, in her very young years, went through a couple abortions, and she shares that frequently, and talks about the pain that caused in her life. Now, God is, as Christians, it says in Romans 8:28, the Lord works all things together for the good to those who love him, are called according to his purpose. And the Lord did work that for her good, to where she's now what turned out to be a tragedy or a curse. It has become a blessing, to where she and her husband Parnell and other folks, and not just them, there's other folks that are actually going down and standing in the gap, just trying to engage folks that are looking at having an abortion, and not just the women, but also the men too.
that's correct.
To talk to them and explain to them, at least give them the information, because you know what? Knowledge is power. And that is something that it's good to see. And again, that's what we're wanting to do, with regard to seeing this type of legislation be brought forward.
That's exactly right. And, one of the things too, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because, when I reflect back and some of the decisions that I made or was in the process of making whenever I was 19,
Right.
and I realized, and I don't tell this story often, but I was supposed to be a radiologist. But whenever I went in and actually started working in the hospitals, I was working in a small rural hospital where most of the patients actually went just to pass away. So as I was walking into the hospital, eventually I got to the point where I was about ready to pass out. I had to actually sit down. So what that told me was that I was not emotionally mature, even at that age, at 20,
Right.
20, to work with people who I knew were going to pass away. So there's emotional maturity. I say now the statistic is 25. 30 years ago, it was 25, right? And if you
Right.
take into consideration that, I think the other statistic is that 30% of the women that have abortions, there's approximately a third of the women in the United States have had an abortion. And I can guarantee you, looking at the statistics, that
Right.
most of them did that without full awareness of what the ramifications were mentally and physically to them after they made that life impacting decision. And we don't talk about that. We don't talk about the health of the mental health of women who have made that decision.
Yeah, and another part of the bill, because I know we have about 13 minutes left, but it talks. I know time flies when you're having
Time
fun.
does.
The medical, chemical abortions.
Medical abortions.
Yeah, talk about that and the impact of that, and we're basically anybody can get an abortion pill by mail. If they order it. Talk about that and why this legislation will address that.
Yeah, and the challenge of that is that basically people say, well, Nancy, that's not possible. That you can't order an abortion pill over get that through the mail. You have to work with your doctor in order to do that. Well, unfortunately, the FDA will be changing that in the month of November of this year, and basically they're removing all the regulations that have been placed on the federal level controlling the distribution of chemical abortions. So what we'll be doing is we will be replacing that language at the state level to make sure that we understand again that the women that are choosing these actually understand what their decisions are. Then they are getting those drugs, pharmaceuticals from a reputable source. Right now we know that I think, and somebody can prove me wrong, but up to this point, I don't think that anybody can. All the manufacturing of all pharmaceuticals is done offshore. And so how do we know when they receive something through the mail that it is actually a legitimate source, and that if they were to have complications afterwards, that they know how to seek assistance if they make the decision that they want to reverse, that they have access to the reversal pill. And so there's so many things that this is very, very important for us that we do this, especially considering that right now the statistic is, again, going back to maybe COVID caused this, but 60% of the abortions that are being done in the Commonwealth are done by the abortion pill.
Wow. See, I didn't realize it was that high statistically. And it really is shocking, too, that the federal government, in a way it's shocking, but in a way it's not, is lifting this requirement in November. So again, the state legislature is being very proactive and getting out in front of it. And there actually will be a period of time, because you all will not convene again until January to make this correct or get it basically figured out. So
That's
there's
correct.
There's going to be a period of time there. The third part of this bill really touched me. It deals with fetal remains, which really is at the heart of the dignity of human life. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so basically what this says is, at this point, if somebody has a spontaneous abortion, or if a baby is aborted at a clinic, then they don't have decisions, or are not consulted regarding what will happen with the fetal remains of their child. And so when an abortion is completed, when let's go to spontaneous, if the spontaneous abortion occurs prior to 20 weeks of gestation, then that baby, the fetal remains, are treated just like they would with any medical waste. So, for example, an appendix is actually incinerated. And so we want to make sure that the baby is not incinerated, that it's treated with a dignity, that you don't have, I don't even know what the statistic is for spontaneous abortions, but that we don't have all those babies glumped into one place, and where they are all incinerated or together. We want to make sure that they will be treated individually with the dignity that they deserve, and that within 24 hours of that abortion, whether it's a spontaneous in a hospital or in a clinic, that the parent has the opportunity to say what they want to be done with those remains.
That's great.
Right.
And with regard to the fourth one, public funding, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to the federal level. The Hyde Amendment, we're familiar with the Hyde Amendment, and how the Hyde Amendment has been supported from a bipartisan perspective for 40 years. And so under the current administration, that Hyde Amendment is not being supported. And so again, we want to make sure that our very critical state and tax federal dollars, the pass-through federal dollars, are treated with the way that our constituents want them to be treated. And the approximately 80% of our constituents say that they do not want our precious dollars spent on abortions.
Okay, great. Fifth one, complications and how that's going to be handled, I guess specifically within a medical institution, and how things are going to be reported. Why is that important?
Yeah, it's so important because, we're tracking so many things, like with the vital statistics. So we go back to, we know how many women have had abortions, why they're having abortions. And right now we're not tracking if there are complications, what are the complications, and then what type of treatment did the patients receive. For example, we want to make sure that if they had to be transported to a hospital, that we know what they are. And some of the complications are pretty dramatic. They're like infections and hemorrhaging and blood clots and uterus perforation. So these aren't small and minor complications. We just want to make sure, again, that whenever those complications occur, that we have accurate reporting, and that, again, we're protecting the health of the mother to make sure that those doctors actually treated them appropriately.
Yeah, amen to that. And with regard to here's one that's been in the news
Yes, sir.
a lot lately, and I think it comes down to basic rights of individuals, and we're seeing a lot of that on a lot of different fronts right now. But dealing with medical conscience, and the bill specifically addresses that. I know that two instances recently that happened with a police officer who was not in uniform, was over in Louisville, and I think all he was doing was praying.
That's correct.
Over there, and he got in a lot of trouble and he got suspended. Fortunately, that was overturned in his favor, but it did happen. And then another incident where a medical student who basically was against abortion and was dismissed from the U of L medical school because they would not support participating in an abortion. So this would allow, the bill would allow folks that are in essence conscientious objectors to the procedure to be protected.
That's correct. Absolutely. And as time, things are so contentious right now. And so it's very important for us to make sure that we are protecting our medical care providers, if they, and that they are not forced to participate in procedures that violate their conscience. I like to use my brother as an example. He's a nurse anesthetist. And several years ago, he actually lost contracts because he would refuse to perform late-term abortions. And so, I understand the free enterprise. I totally understand that. Yet at the same time, he should not be fired because he's a pro-life nurse practitioner, but especially if there are other people that can perform those abortions and choose to do that. So I understand that he, eventually he went out and started his own business primarily because of that. But we need to be able to protect our medical providers and to be able to protect their conscience.
Amen. Shifting gears over to a bill that I know is very near and dear to your heart. You're, if not the lead champion on it, you're one of the top 2 or 3 championing House Bill 155. What a beautiful bill that got passed. And what's really cool about it, and we were talking a little bit before we went live with Sonita about this, it really enjoyed full bipartisan support. Now, in today's world, when do you see that happening? Like almost never.
That's correct.
Does it happen? And tell the folks about House Bill 155. I know we're getting ready to implement a part of it here in my county where I live, Shelby County. We're just talk a little bit about that. We got a couple minutes to discuss that.
Great, thank you so much. And you're right. There were absolutely no votes. No, there were some people that abstained from voting, or because they weren't present, but there were no votes. And to me, that just demonstrates, first of all, there were a couple issues with the bill. And so I worked with anyone who had an issue with the bill and, what can we do to make this stronger? There's no perfect bill, right? And I try to be very open and honest with my critics, because then they can help me, especially when they're friendly critics, and can help me make that bill better.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, because one of the things that I had in there was, for example, that a person can relinquish the baby. Well, actually, it should be the parent, right? Okay, so what the Safe Haven Baby Box will do, House Bill 155, is it gives the opportunity, if a parent cannot, for whatever reason, take care of their baby, they can surrender their baby in one of these boxes. And these boxes, it's all voluntary. The boxes can be placed in a hospital or a jail.
Fire station.
Or a fire station. That's exactly right. That is monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's so crucial that these babies actually get immediate medical care, because the babies, 75% of the babies that have been surrendered have actually been surrendered with their umbilical cords still attached, which tells us that they have not received any health care at all. So there's 110 boxes across the United States, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 states, including Kentucky, 110 boxes. and 12 babies have been surrendered in those boxes. Now, just because of the communication about these boxes, approximately 100 babies have been surrendered just calling into the 1-800 number. So we've got 4 boxes in Kentucky, and my goal is that there be one in every county. And as a matter of fact, with House Bill 155, I want there to be 155 boxes in Kentucky,
awesome.
because we never want to see another baby, regardless of where it is, be put in a trash can or a dumpster because the parents can't take care of them.
And the boxes are well designed, they're well ventilated. Like you say, if a baby's actually put in a box, the responding authorities know immediately it's in there. And I think just as importantly, the folks that do decide to surrender, they're not going to be held under any kind of penalty.
That's correct.
For doing that. And that's equally important too.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's no shame and no blame. Just surrender your baby, and we'll make sure that it's taken care of.
Wonderful. Well, Nancy, where has our time gone?
It passes so fast.
It passed very fast, and just love and appreciate the work that you're doing for the Commonwealth, obviously for your district as well. Do you have any final remarks that you'd like to make before we call it a show?
No, again, I just want to thank you. I want to thank Commonwealth Policy Center. I want to thank the support, obviously, from the General Assembly. And I'm so honored to have the opportunity to be the Pro-Life Caucus Chair for the House. So I co-chair with Senator Mills. And so it's just such a blessing to be able to do that.
Well, Nancy Tate, again, it's been my honor to have you on today representing District 27 in Brandenburg. God bless you. And folks who have tuned in today, we thank you for taking your time to watch this edition of CPC Live. We'll see you next time. God bless.
Thank you.